Welcome to is this our second or our third garden chat? I think it's our third garden chat. Um, of Wild Ones Chesapeake Bay. We try to have a quick presentation each time for Q&A, and then to let all our members and others know what we've been doing, because we're deeply rooted in nature, in natives rather now. Our May garden chat is about native understory trees. When we first thought of this, we thought, oh, we ought to talk about dogwoods, things that would be blooming sometime in May. And a little investigation, we found out that really there's only two what people think of as dogwoods that are native to Maryland. There are other dogwoods, same family, but not what people think of as dogwoods, so to speak. So then we changed it to understory trees. So these are the more shade tolerant trees. I see them a lot when I'm driving along a road because they like the edges of forest where they're getting some sunlight during the day, but it's not in deep, deep shade. So understory things can be small trees, shrubs, vines, and then saplings. When you drive along many of our Maryland roads, a month or so ago, the redbuds were just gorgeous, and that's where I often see the redbuds. So we start out with the dogwood species. The one that most people think of as when you say dogwood, the one that comes to mind is the one on the left, the flowering dogwood, Cornus florida. But there's also the red osier dogwood, sometimes known as red twig dogwood, and there's also a yellow twig dogwood. They're cultivars of Cornus sericea. And then the last one is one that I have, and that's my picture, and it still hasn't bloomed, Marlene. Marlene said, oh, it'll bloom before the chat. Well, nope, it has not, but it's about to, and that's the gray dogwood. And I'm trying to grow it as a tree, and we'll talk more about how you do that. It has to do with the pruning, how you prune it. But those are the ones that are found commonly in Maryland. So this is Marlene's flowering dogwood, Cornus florida, and it has the typical they're not petals, they're bracts, but that's botanical things, that the whitish color and with a greenish yellow center. Now, many of you may have another kind of dogwood. It's called a Coosa dogwood. It's non-native, was heavily landscaped way back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It's from Japan, and it is blooming now. Whereas the flowering dogwood, the Cornus florida, bloomed 3 weeks, a month ago, and they're about done. So anything that you look at and say, oh, that's a dogwood that's blooming right now is probably the Cornus or the Coosa dogwood. But the Cornus florida grows up to 40 feet tall if it's in a spot that it likes. Usually is smaller than that, 15 to 30. There are some cultivars that have a pinkish tinge to the bracts. The neat thing that I found about it is they are the larval host for Cecropia moths and the Eo moths, which are two of our bigger, really colorful moths that you don't see often. They're not very common. And the fruit of these, it's a purple, looks like a berry, but it's actually called a drupe, is a great food source for many birds. I should go back one. Nah, we'll do Q&A in a bit. So the red osier dogwood is more of a shrubby plant than a tree because it suckers quite a bit, meaning as you keep it pruned, it spreads out wide. The nativity in Maryland sometimes is a little questionable. Lady Bird Johnson native or wildflower plant base says it's native. Um, the Missouri Botanical Garden says native, but Maryland Biodiversity Project only shows it in 2 counties. Um, it blooms from May to June. Uh, it's one that likes consistently wet soil. So this is good for rain gardens. I have a swale between 2 houses that drains our street, and we just planted 2 of them down alongside of that swale, and we're hoping that that will help with the drainage there. If you really want the red twigs, which are gorgeous in winter, you need to prune out 20 to 25% of the oldest twigs in early spring. It blooms on new wood, so you're not going to be removing bloom, but you're going to get that really nice red color. Um, I have another home in Michigan. These grow all over along the sides of the roads in the drainage ditches. And I was there in March and I just kept looking and I kept telling my husband, stop, I've got to see that. That's a red twig dogwood. Let me take a picture. Um, so they tend to be more northern. We're probably at the southern end of its range. You'll see the hardiness zones there, 3 to 7. So we're at the bottom end of where it likes to grow naturally. Gray dogwood, Cornus racemosa, mostly in Western Maryland, though Maryland Biodiversity Project shows that 12 different counties have at least one record. It's another one that will form a thicket. It suckers out. So if you prune it, keep it low, it will start sending stuff out to the side, and you can get a nice thicket. Mine has yet to bloom this year, but it's almost there. It's almost there. It's great for erosion control again, and it's good for wildlife habitat, and it's the larval hope for the spring azure, which is a little tiny blue butterfly that you should start to see now, or very shortly. The berries, the reason it's a gray dogwood is the berries on this are kind of a grayish white when they have berries, and that provides food for birds as well. Silky dogwood. This is my newest purchase, or well, not a purchase. It came in the buffer bundle with Anne Arundel County watershed stewards. It again does best in moist areas, poorly drained. It has blue fruit that ripen in late summer. And the reason it's called silky is because the tops of the leaves and the stems have very, very, very fine hairs on them so that they look silky. In the fall, winter, and early spring, the young dogwood has bright red stems, kind of like the red osier one, that turn a reddish brown. Again, I forgot to look up how much is here, but if Anne Arundel County is giving it out, I'm sure it's fairly native in most of southern Maryland. One of my favorites, the redbud. Everybody asks, what won't the deer eat? Redbud is one of them. They tend to be deer tolerant. And I just found out today when I was adding to my research, they can grow under black walnut trees. Not a lot grows under black walnut trees because they put out a chemical that kind of prohibits things. But some of the research I saw today said that you can grow a redbud near a black walnut tree. They are the seeds and the flower buds are great sources of food for birds. Mine are full of songbirds, finches, and cardinals in particular when they're blooming. I'm not sure what they're getting out of the flower buds, but they will eat the flower buds. It's also an early season nectar source for hummers. Now, around here, I don't see my hummers till May, and the redbuds are long gone by then, but possibly in other spots further south, it would be a redbud. The only problem that some people have with redbuds is the abundant amount of seed pods. The seed pods kind of look like beans, and they drop, and you may end up with lots and lots of seedlings underneath that tree. Oftentimes, you can just pot them up or say, hey, anybody want red buds? And somebody will come get them. So I don't consider that a problem. Serviceberry, this is one I do not have, but people that have it, and I saw one at the Captain Avery Museum recently, Canadian serviceberry, shadblow serviceberry, or shadbush. And it's one that blooms when the shad, which is a fish, are running. So I can remember my dad go, oh, the shad bush is blooming, the shad must be running. I don't know, but it was blooming a couple of weeks ago. Um, it can be a problem because cedar rust, the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see what the rust looks like. It's basically a fungus, which makes the berries inedible to us, and it's mostly cosmetic damage. It's not a big problem, unless you want to eat the serviceberry, which some people do. It also attracts a large number of native bees because it is blooming at a time when those bees are coming in out of their winter overing in the ground and the different spots where they overwinter. Now, this is probably my new personal favorite. On the left is mine. You can see how tiny it is. I got it fairly inexpensively because the leader stem had broken off. So mine is growing much more like a bush. It doesn't have a central leader anymore. So I just have to keep an eye, and one of those other branches will take over that. But meanwhile, it's looking more bushy. But the one on the right is about a 10-year-old tree that's at the Captain Avery Museum in Shadyside. And I was there to take pictures of other things and saw this and just said, oh my goodness, that's just absolutely stunning. It's also called Old Man's Beard because that's kind of what it looks like. It is dioecious, which means you need to have two, a male and a female, in order to get berries. Now I figured I was less concerned about the berry as looks, so I only bought one because it was half the price of the other ones there. And I ended up with a couple of berries on it last year. I know there's another one in the neighborhood, but it's 5 houses away. So I guess I have a female, and somehow or another it did get pollinated, but I can't verify that. Um, but it's a pretty neat and I think underused small tree. It's very nice. All right. There's some of the resources that I got for my research on the different things that I just told you about. The dogwood one, the top one in Southern Living, was actually excellent article. You can look up on the Maryland Biodiversity Project anything that you want to check out to see if it's native. That's a good place to check. And you can put in the genus, and then you see the ones that are found in Maryland. Now, that's not the be all and end all of nativity. There are other spots you can look at too, and I know Jimmy can tell us. I think it's USDA has a project, a database as well. So I take nativity from more than one source, and then I make my own decision as to whether that plant belongs in my yard or not. I can put those in the chat too when we're talking. Here's some more understory trees. I know that Marlene loves her pawpaws. I also have a river birch, which I love, that I thought was going to stay much smaller, but it's in a spot where it loves it. Sweet bay magnolia is another one. Sweet crabapple, wild black cherry, and some of the sumacs are considered understory as well. So think about what your favorite tree is. We'll talk about that because I think we're coming up on Q&A. Yes, we are.
So Sue, before we open it up for questions and answers in general, there had been a few questions in the chat. Robin
Okay.
was asking, what about the pink dogwood, the rubra? Is that native?
Which one?
The pink dogwood rubra?
That one I don't know of. It might be, let me look at the chat to see how to spell that name.
I think it's probably a cultivar.
Yeah, probably.
Cornus, Florida.
The big one, rubra. Yeah, it might be. They did say that you can find the Cornus, Florida, that sometimes are pink. So that could be. You'd have to look at that the scientific name, the botanical name. If it says Cornus, Florida, and then has rubra after it or pink in quotes in English, then it's probably a cultivar. And everybody has their own opinion on whether cultivars are good, bad, or indifferent. Let's put it that way. What else was in there?
Pagoda dogwoods?
Yeah, that's the Coosa dogwood. That's non-native, and they are blooming now.
And Robin noted that the leafcutter bees love redbud leaves.
Yes, they do. It's always fun.
Yeah.
It's always fun to go look at my redbud and see these almost perfectly whole, perfectly circular cutouts on the leaves, because then I know the leafcutter bees have been there.
And then Laura is asking if any of the dogwoods, I don't know if she's asking, yeah, I think she's asking for dogwoods in particular, if they're fast growing. She's had a seedling that's barely grown. It's less than a foot in the last 2 years.
Yeah, mine don't seem to grow very fast. So I can't answer that specifically because I don't know, but I think they are probably pretty slow.
Probably depends on site conditions too.
Yes.
I can tell you the picture of the one in my yard is decades old. And I don't recall it being as prolific when we bought the property. I have seen it blooming in recent years, but this year it was just pretty spectacular, the spread it's gotten on it. But like I say, this one's probably 30 plus years old that you see in the picture. Now let's see, Jimmy has weighed in on some sites for determining nativity of plants in Maryland. Jimmy, do you want to speak on that?
Oh no,
Give us your
I think
insight.
Sue mentioned me, so I just shared what I do, which is, you always have to look at more than one thing. So FloraQuest is an app, but there is a web version of it, which is the UNC Flora of the Southeast. There's Maryland Biodiversity Project, and then if you've ever picked up that Fish and Wildlife booklet called I don't have it in front of me, but it's the little booklet that's supposedly the plants that grow in the Chesapeake watershed. That's actually, if you go to nativeplantcenter.net, they made a little relational database out of it that you can search of all those same plants by state, ecoregion, and things like that. And that's a pretty good starting point for most people. So I like that site. And
Yeah, Lisa corrected me. The pagoda dogwood is Cornus alternifolia, and I think I looked that one up, and it's found mostly in Western Maryland, but I could be wrong. Jimmy added in a link, likely sections of the uncommon flower color. Thank you, Jimmy. When I looked up Cornus alternifolia on Maryland Biodiversity Project, it's in Maryland, but mostly in Western Maryland. If I remember, looking at the map that I'm looking at right now, mostly out in the mountain areas. So somebody else talk now and tell us your favorite understory tree. That's why we call this a chat, people.
Sassafras.
Sassafras.
Is a fantastic understory tree, fantastic fall color, lots of different leaves, food for wildlife, native, easy to grow, but if you give it the right conditions, it will turn into a tree.
My mother's got sassafras growing in her yard, and it started out with one, and we were like, oh, what is this? Looked up the leaves and saw it was sassafras, and now 2 years later, there are about 15 of them. So she's got to actually cut a bunch down, unfortunately.
Robin, the
Yeah.
one you gave me a couple years ago didn't survive. Can you bring me another one to the swap, please?
I will bring you 3 of them, and then you can try your luck with all 3.
Okay.
She's got a lot of them, and they're a little bigger now, so maybe they'll do better.
Okay.
I've heard they're fussy to transplant, but we'll see. And they do thicket, so if you want a sassafras thicket, the leaves in the fall are absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I was going to say, if your roots don't do well, then boil them up and make yourself some root beer or some tea, sassafras tea from the roots.
That would be fun.
I mean, that's where the original root beer flavor came from, sassafras, and they used to make sassafras tea, but somebody said that if you drank 800 cups a day that you would get cancer, so now you're not allowed to drink it. For real, it's true. Like, they did some study where they made some mice drink equivalent to like 800 cups, and they got bladder cancer. I think that's shit.
Isn't that what sarsaparilla was? Wasn't that made from sassafras?
Yeah, I think it was.
Sarsaparilla is from a plant called sarsaparilla.
Oh, okay. Never mind.
From sassafras.
I really like fringe trees a lot, and I bought one last year, and it was a little one, so I was giving it a year to, put some size on. So this year I'm going to plant it out in front of the oak trees, the big giant oak trees, and start creating an understory, because I either have very low to the ground stuff or big giant oak trees. So that's going to be my first understory. And the ones at the Nature Center in North Beach are really pretty right now. Well, actually, they might be done now, but I think
No, they're still blooming.
Okay, they're really pretty. They're only a few years old, aren't they? Didn't you just plant those a few years ago?
One that's 7 years old, and it's very amazing. And then the other two, we just planted last year.
Okay.
I'd never seen or heard of them until recently, and I think they're gorgeous. So
They are related to ash trees. So people have been watching them very carefully to make sure that wild ones don't get emerald ash borer attacks. So far, we haven't seen that happen, but they are in the same family. Yes. I wanted to say, Nan, I thought your presentation was very good.
Thank you.
You picked out a lot of good ones.
Is it, Jimmy, have you ever seen the pink flowering dogwood? I looked it up, and it is just a natural variety. It's called pink flowering dogwood instead of flowering dogwood. But has anyone ever seen one for sale, or would I have to get lucky and come across my neighbor has one growing, my mother's neighbor has one growing in her yard, so I could just scout around there and
order one from, like, Green Street Gardens could get one for you. But there's people that live up the road on Boyd's Turn, and they have one that's half white and half pink. So I don't know if that was spliced to be that way or it just happened to grow that way, but it's very cool.
Wow. So what would that be? A pink spliced onto a white?
I suppose. I don't know because it's really neat. And one half is pink and one half is white.
That's cool. I'm
That's
gonna have to go
odd.
to Boydstown Road and Boydstern Road and look at that. How about
Boydstern
some,
Road.
okay, I know Robin and Lisa are Calvert County and I'm Southern Anne Arundel. Marlene is Calvert County. Anybody down in St. Mary's have a favorite tree?
Do we have anyone from St. Mary's?
Yeah, I'm in St. Mary's and
cool.
I love all the trees you mentioned. I did talk to a nursery person about the fringe tree. Why are they so expensive? Well, they said one, they grow very slow. If you're lucky, maybe 8 inches a year in a nursery, and that they need a lot of space between the trees when they're growing them. They can't be packed in. But I had a question on almost all of these trees are available through the Maryland Tree Nursery.
Yeah.
But do you know an organization that, I mean, you have to get 25 and that's unreasonable for most people. Do you know any group that sponsors like a group buy where, people would like chip in some money, but then you wouldn't have to get, you could get a variety?
I've seen people doing that through the different groups on Facebook where a bunch of people
I did a
from-
neighborhood thing like that for what did we buy? Beach plums. Because we're all right on the coast. So we bought 25 beach plum, but it was just 4 or 5 of us neighbors got together. I ordered them, they gave me the money, and when they came in, I just passed them out. But I don't know of any. That might be something, that might be another post-it note. So that I can.
I would like to say that you have a forestry board, Calvert County Forestry Board or Prince George's Forestry Board. I suppose there must be a St. Mary's Forestry Board. They usually could be helpful in getting trees for you. Specifically, if you want a certain species for a planting or a project or something like that, they can help you get the trees, and they have more resources than we have. As an individual, you have to buy a bunch from the state tree nursery, but as the forestry board, they might be able to get a different amount. I know that we've gotten trees in the past from forestry board.
Now, do you think that's something that Wild Ones could maybe do in the future, or is this group not really that kind of forum for that?
If you're a nonprofit agency or you are a group, you can apply to get trees from the Tremendous Maryland. I mean, I'm the head of the tree committee in North Beach, and we've done different ways of getting trees. I even got a grant one year from Keep Maryland Beautiful, and with the grant, we were able to get $500 worth of, no, it was more than that, $1,000 worth of native trees. That's how Robin got her giant basswood tree, because when we got the trees, they were very, very large, bigger than I expected, and we tried to give them to our residents, and they all were like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want a 7-foot tall tree." So think about when you're getting the trees, when it says that it's 2-inch caliper or 1-inch caliper, that's a pretty big tree, and you might want to start with smaller ones. If you want to start with a big tree, a grant's a good way to get a whole bunch. And what we did with what Robin and she helped me do with what's the name of Jeremy's organization? Bonaterra.
Bonaterra.
Yeah, he has a whole bunch of trees and shrubs that he's trying to find new homes for right now. He's in Friendship, Maryland, because he's moving to a new location. So you might want to check out with him and see what he has left. He probably has a lot of stuff on his property that he might be needing homes for.
Okay.
Carrie, do you know about him?
Yeah, I've been there, and
Okay. He's moving over to Charles County. He's buying some land over in Charles County. So
Oh, okay.
his whole operation is going to be moved to there this year.
Oh, wow.
So he'll be closer to you.
Yeah, and Charles, do you know about where in Charles?
Marlene, do you know?
Yeah, it's close to, I think it's an Indian Head address.
Okay, over
Okay.
there. Okay, wow, that's great. Yeah. Yeah, I guess
Bummer,
that,
bummer for us because we're at the street from us right now. we
I
like
know. I know.
I mean, the nice thing about the tree nursery is they're so cheap, you don't have to really give it too much thought. You don't need to write a grant or anything like that. $3, who wants to, that's easy. And I've
Exactly.
had really good luck with a lot of them as long as I prepped the site. When I did bare root and I just put them in a field without taking all the all the turf grass away and mulching, no good. No good. They got swallowed up. But once I planted them correctly, they've done very well. And I thought the gray dogwood grew pretty fast. I got a pretty big thicket in a few years, and they were $3 a piece. So
but you had to buy a certain amount, right? You had to buy 25 or 50 of them, didn't you?
yeah, I had to buy 25. And when I bought them, they were $1 a piece. Now they're $3. Oh my goodness.
Price has gone up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we bought
Inflation.
our beach plums at $3, and site prep was a major issue there.
Yeah.
I lost the ones that I put in the ground. But the ones that I planted in a huge pot are still surviving.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to get them really sturdy and then rethink about where I'm putting them.
Mm-hmm.
We need to move on because we want to tell you all the exciting things that we've been doing lately. So we're going to go, I think, there we go. Okay. We were up at Quiet Waters Park for Earth Day, one of our first tabling events. It was cold. It wasn't really rainy. But we had lots of people come by and lots of people were interested. And this is basically Marlene, Bill, Emily, and I trying to stay warm on that day. But it was kind of fun. It was our first really big tabling event. We've done some other smaller ones. So yeah, Quiet Waters Park. We had Xerxes with Marlene right next to us, and she had butterfly masks for the kids, which was fun. I'm going to let Marlene or Bill talk about Maryland Day because that was the big event.
So, Maryland Day, this was the second year we've attended, and we go in support of Nurture Natives. Nurture Natives was founded by Esther Bonney and Sam Rutherford, and Esther is a member of our chapter. I started supporting her as a master gardener and have continued supporting her through Wild Ones Chesapeake Bay. Bonaterra and Chesapeake Natives donated seedlings for the giveaway, and we gave away trays and trays of seedlings. I haven't gotten the final count yet from Esther, but I think we gave away plants for 3 hours that day. It was a lot of fun. We had a long line. Last year was our first year, and we gave away native trees that they actually bought through a grant that they had been awarded. And last year, they actually purchased plants with the help of Butterfly Alley to purchase the trees. But we didn't have a grant award this year, so we had to do what we could with the resources we had. But that's a fun event. We expect to go every year as long as Esther has the interest in participating in Maryland Day. In fact, I think through participating in Maryland Day and what she has seen of their programs there, she plans to attend the University of Maryland.
Yay.
And next slide.
Yeah.
And this is our latest event. We were at the Wild Bee and Flower Festival last weekend in Laurel, and we were joined by Wild Ones Greater Baltimore. That area between Laurel and Bowie does not have its own local chapter. They're kind of between Baltimore and Chesapeake Bay, so we invited Greater Baltimore to join us, and we had a great time. Again, Esther was there. We did a Bonaterra seedling giveaway. Sue and Robin helped with the plant divisions. And we talked to a lot of people about natives, gave out a lot of information. I've been following up with emails on questions or further resources people wanted. We had a plant pong game, which attracted a lot of interest from young children as young that had to be lifted up over the table by their parents to some of the older participants. And that game was sponsored by Chesapeake Natives. They provided seed packets for that event, that game. And Nana, Sue, and Robin, you were there. Is there anything you'd like to say about the event? Or Bill?
It was intense.
Bill says it was intense.
Yes, yeah, intense is not the word for it.
I think it was, so as soon as it opened, we started handing out plants. You know, basically people filled out an order form and then we sat and filled them. And it was Esther and I, and then a couple people jumped in here and there to volunteer. And then Sue came in, and it was all day. It was the entire time. In fact, it was past the closing time. And at one point I was able to stop and get a coffee and a bagel at like 1 o'clock. And I was never so thankful to have a cup of coffee and a bagel, because it was just nuts. I mean, people really want those little plants. I hope everybody planted.
Yeah.
So,
And
you know.
at towards the end, it was, nope, we don't have any more of that. Nope, we don't have any more of that. Nope, we
Yes.
don't have any more of that.
I think we
So
had what, 10
This
or
is
12
what we have
species.
left.
We started out with 10 or 12.
Robin,
Go
I have
ahead.
a question, because I used to do programs up at Patuxent Wildlife Refuge when I worked up there. And we would just get giant trays of like swamp milkweed and giant trays of butterfly weed, and we would just have them. And then as people came through that bee festival, they would just take a plant with them. We didn't do any special ordering or anything like that. So why is it that Wild Ones does so much intensive work? Is it part of your mission?
We are doing it. Bonaterra sponsors these community-led seedling giveaways, so they are done under the Bonaterra umbrella.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's it.
and
Okay.
you know, we follow their guideline as far as their little order forms, so that we can keep track of how many seedlings approximately are given away at an event. Jeremy's goal has been to distribute 1 million native seedlings.
Okay.
And I'm not quite sure how far he is toward that goal, but I think he will probably expand that goal this year. So it's really trying to carry out the same model, if you will, that Bonaterra has established.
Well, we got our plants this year from Bonaterra, and we did 3/4 of our plants are giveaway, and 1/4 of our plants we plant in our gardens as a demonstration garden, and that's what. But so we were just able to just say, well, this is how many we gave away. But
Yeah.
I like your idea that you kept a track of it on a sheet. That might be a better way to keep track
Yeah.
of it.
Well, but didn't you guys at the previous event, didn't you meet ahead of time and pre-pot up all of the little
Yes, everything
clumps?
was pre-potted and grown a little bit so that they were big enough that you could see them, and then we gave those away. So 3/4 are potted and given away, and 1/4 was planted in our gardens.
And Marlene, didn't you also do that at a previous event?
No,
Yeah.
no. So when we went to Maryland Day, we got there 2 hours early so that we could begin separating the seedlings. We don't
Oh, okay.
separate them and repot them and grow them up any. It is the
Okay.
same model that Jeremy has, where they're pretty much just separated and given out that day, with the expectation that they're going to be potted up or planted within the week.
Okay, now I understand better, because that explains why ours was less labor intensive later, because we had already separated and grew them a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
But we still had to do the separating in the beginning. So, okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we did separate, for Maryland Day, Chesapeake Natives had donated a couple of trays, a couple of flats that they had grown. And Esther and I did separate those seedlings the day before. And it is pretty labor intensive. And it's also more transportation, you know, how do you transplant all these flats or all these pots once you've potted them up? So
Right.
we realize we have more quarts available for, you know, dividing the day of the event if we just take them as quarts.
Okay, that's a good plan. I just didn't really understand exactly. I know Robin told me that you spent the whole day separating them out and giving them to people, but I didn't realize
Yep.
because it was still the quarts of all the little seedlings.
Yep, it's Jeremy's model where the quartz are there and we're just pulling out from the quartz. And now what we don't do, when Jeremy has his seedling giveaways, he allows people to choose in like quantities of, I think it's 10, 25, and 50. But in order to reach more attendees, we do groups of 10. And it just makes it easier for us. So no matter what they're choosing, they can choose several varieties, but they're going to get a little chunk of 10 approximately of each seedling type.
And also we started out saying choose 3 to 5 plants, and then it just became clear we would have to limit people to 3. I think a couple schools came through and they pulled out. I think we gave them like 1 of each practically, but the individuals we were limiting to 3, and we started out with about 12 different species and ended up with about 3 or 4 left.
Right. Yeah.
So.
And we had people who had seen our events advertised through our Facebook groups that specifically came to us for seedlings that weekend as opposed to going to Bonatera. And we had a few special requests. So we were even able to pick up a few additional species that Friday before because we knew people were coming specifically for certain seedlings.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, next slide.
Yep.
This is a slide. This is showing our work at the St. Mary's Animal Adoption and Resource Center. And Butterfly Alley was a source of many of the plants that went into this garden. This garden was a joint effort between Wild Ones, Chesapeake Bay, St. Mary's Garden Club, the Friends of St. Clements Bay, the staff at the animal shelter, and the students of the horticulture, natural resources management at Forest Tech in St. Mary's County. They had some existing garden beds that were just overgrown, and they had seen the flyer for our native plant swap last fall at the Leonardtown Library. They reached out to the organizer of that event and said, hey, we've got some gardens here at the animal shelter we'd like to renovate, and put in native plants. So those of us who were interested got together and we developed a plan with them, procured the plants. We took out the existing vegetation and moved a few things. They did keep a few things that were in the garden. They had some inkberry holly that we kept, and they had some mums that we relocated. But we sourced all the other plants from Butterfly Alley. There were a few things that came from the demo gardens at the St. Mary's Extension office last fall that we dug up and saved through the winter. So after we took out all the old vegetation and moved what was there that they wanted to save, we sheet mulched and waited about a month and a half, and then we went in with all the plants. We had 2 planting days where we put in hundreds of plugs. I think it's about a 450 square foot total between the 2 gardens. And we're looking forward to going back once the garden starts to grow a little bit more. We have a maintenance agreement that they will maintain the gardens as far as weeding and watering. And between the partners who worked on it, we will share responsibilities going in maybe once a month to do some consultation with whatever questions they have on the plants. But the interesting thing about this one, the garden up against the building that you see in the top right photo, not the very top one that says before, but the one that's between the building and the sidewalks, that is actually in front of the cat condo windows. So they're hoping that the activity at the native beds there, both the butterflies and the birds, may be some entertainment for the kittens and cats in the cat condos. So we're excited to see how that works out. Any questions on that garden? Happy to answer them. I think you're next, Sue.
Okay.
I can ask if there's anything in that garden that you were able to save, or did you pretty much have to take everything out?
We saved the inkberry hollies, and we saved the mums for them just because, they had some sentimental value to the mums. But I think there might have been one aster that was saved. But other than that, we pretty much took it down to bare ground. and sheet mulched it and replanted.
Okay.
And in addition, it's not solely native plants. There are a few herbs. They wanted some herbs. And we had to make sure that everything was pretty much pet friendly because of the dogs that get walked around the area. So we did make a conscious effort when we were choosing plants for that too.
All right, our next project, which is been very minor involvement so far, but we're working on it. I connected Captain Salem Avery Museum, which is in Shadyside, a very small historic home from a waterman from years ago that has been turned into a museum. And one of my neighbors is on the board of directors and knew I was in native plants and said, can you come look at our garden? And we have a list, we need to rehab them. The gardens were started nearly 14 years ago as a watershed steward's capstone project. So there's lots and lots of natives, wonderful examples of rain gardens and water management. It is right on the bay. So we managed to connect up with Bonaterra, and they had a small grant from Unity Gardens, and they were able to purchase all their plants, or almost all. They didn't have a couple that they wanted. So I went and picked them up at Bonaterra and delivered them. It's the back of the truck with all the plants in it. And unfortunately, the day they planted, I had other commitments and it rained. So I didn't get back to actually watch the planting, but I did go over last week. And the two pictures on the right show the cardinal flower that was put in and some of the native grasses and other stuff in another garden. It's a very slow project in project in progress because everybody that's doing all this work are volunteers. So we're hoping that by fall, the gardens will have all been rehabbed and be looking great. So that's the latest on that project. It's in progress. I'm also working with the same neighbor who is reinstalling a pollinator garden at Tracy's Landing Elementary School. So if anybody has any extra full sun pollinator plants native, let me know because we don't have a grant for that one. We're scrounging from everywhere for Tracy's Landing Elementary School.
Hey, Sue, not to interrupt, but I do have some grasses that since we weren't selling anymore, I didn't want to be open just because I had some grasses that weren't sold. So, could I send you an email letting you know what they are and you can let me know if you're interested?
Yes,
Okay.
that's fine. Thank you, Carrie. Marlene, you want to speak of the calendar?
Sure. I just want to remind folks, I know that everybody doesn't make it to each meeting, but last month or our last meeting, we introduced our chapter calendar, which you can find on our website, chesapeakebay.wildones.org. And under chapter calendar, we try to have all of our events listed, including our work days. So like if we're working in one of the gardens, we try to put it on the calendar. If we have an outreach event, we put it on the calendar. So if you see anything out there that you're interested in participating in, please, by all means, reach out. If you expand the entry on the calendar, we try to list who is leading that event so you can reach out directly, whether it be to Sue or to me, or to one of our other board members. And then also, on that same page of our calendar, running down the right-hand side of the page are the upcoming events that we post on the Wild Ones National Calendar. So we're required to post a certain number of events on the national calendar, which we do, and keep track of things like our number of attendees and, how many people we're reaching when we do these events. And next slide, Sue.
Yep.
And on the calendar, you will see some of our featured events that are coming up this coming Saturday. Sue and Robin will be at the Chesapeake Natives Rosaryville Native Plant Festival in Upper Marlboro. And there's the flyer for that. I believe, is that event rain or shine, Sue?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep. I think
Which
they're
is
calling
why
for
I'm
rain.
glad I have the tent in the back of my van right now.
Yep, I think they're calling for rain.
Yep.
So if anybody's interested in going up to the Native Plant Festival this weekend and participating, volunteering with our outreach table, we'd be happy to have you. Next Saturday on the 25th, we'll be at Nature Fest at Tillman Lake Park. We will be there sort of collaborating with Southern Maryland Audubon Society and the town of La Plata. The town of La Plata is a bee city and bird city. And between the three tables, we're going to be focusing on the World Migratory Bird Message to protect insects and protect plants. So we are weaving in the message of planting natives to protect birds and insects. We will also be having a Bonneterre seedling giveaway at that event at Nature Fest. So we could use any local volunteers down here in Charles County if anyone is interested in joining us, either for all or part of that event. And Bill, did you want to say something?
Make those 3 tables with all the bond ones.
Yeah. And then let's see, Saturday, June 1st, that is our first plant swap of the year, plant share, plant swap, along with the Southern Maryland Native Plant People Facebook group. And that's being hosted at the American Chestnut Land Trust in Prince Frederick. So you can find out more information on our Facebook groups for that. Again, everybody's welcome. You don't have to bring plants to participate. We just know we have a lot of dedicated gardeners in the group who have lots of things to share from their established gardens. So we like to spread the plants throughout the region. And then our next virtual garden chat will be in mid-July. We, like Sue said earlier this evening when we started, we do these every other month. And next, any questions about our events coming up?
I just was going to say that I'm the president of Prince George's Audubon Society, and we have Habitat Advisors, and the Habitat Advisors will be at the Rosaryville event. And they have 60 Habitat Advisors in Prince George's County and have trained people in Calvert County. And they've done over 120 house visits, helping people plant for birds and wildlife and pollinators. They go in and advise on that. So if you get a chance, if you're at Rosaryville event and you want to talk to people from the bird side, our Habitat Advisors will be there. And I'm very proud of how well they're doing. And
That's super.
Yes. They're like the La Plata group, that you're talking about, the Southern Maryland Audubon.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And for those who aren't aware, you can follow us on Facebook. We have both a chapter page and a chapter group. The group being a little more informal where anybody can join and post to that. The chapter is basically a business page that was set up by Wild Ones National for us. And then we're on Instagram and we have a YouTube channel, and you can always reach us by email. And next slide, Sue. And that's pretty much all the information we had for this evening. But again, we can open up. I know it's 8 o'clock and probably a lot of you have to leave, but if anybody wants to introduce themselves who are new to the group this evening, since I see we have a lot of new names, we're happy to hear, where you are, what your interest is in joining the chapter, and,
I
how
could
we
probably
can help you or you can help us.
Yeah, I'm Lisa Garrett. I always assume because I wear a name tag, everybody knows who I am, but we're on Zoom, so you can see my name tag. I am a new member to the Wild Ones Chesapeake chapter, and I appreciate that. And I run the North Beach Nature Center, and I'm the head of conservation for the town of North Beach. I've been a former board member of the Maryland Native Plant Society. I've been putting in native plant gardens for 20 plus years in Prince George's and in Calvert County. So I'm really excited to meet other people that love native stuff as much as me. Yeah.
And you're also president of the PG Audubon Society.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. Because I've been involved with Audubon since I first moved here 30 years ago.
Does PG Audubon do anything along with Southern Maryland Audubon? Because I know some of us on here are members of Southern Maryland Audubon too.
Well, because I live in Calvert County, I'm a member of Southern Maryland Audubon, but I'm the president of Prince George's Audubon. So we do team up on things. We do a really cool program every year in February called I Bird, I Vote, and other people can come to it. You don't have to be a bird person. And we have legislators from all over the state. We had Senator Cardin with all different speakers come and talk about what's going up before the state legislature. And this year the native plant bill got passed.
Yay.
More of the invasive plants got put on the list to not be sold. And so we did letter writing and calls, advocacy work with the different Audubon chapters to help get that done. And that was pretty exciting. But we did not get the Chesapeake Channa, which is the snakehead. We did not get that stopped. They did change the name of the snakehead to the Chesapeake Channa, which is pretty weird. But hey, we got more invasive species taken out of the nursery trade. So I think that's pretty exciting.
Is that list available yet, Lisa?
I just saw it. They just just put it out. I can find out from Jim. He's our contact with DC Maryland Audubon, and he was the one that would go to Annapolis and work on that. So I can find out from him if it's all been published or when or what date it will be published.
Is this about the invasive species to be banned?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm the social media person for the coalition on that. So I can speak really, really briefly on that. I'm going to try and get the dates correct because it's actually more of a timeline than a list right now. So goes into effect as a law at the new fiscal year, which I believe is July 1st.
Yes.
The regulation, so we're not really passing a list, it's a regulation process, which was written by our people. It's the thing we want. October 1st is when the regulation has to be adopted by the Secretary of Agriculture. And then that's the thing that sets up the whole process. And what that is if you all know Judy Fulton and other people who are involved in native plant or invasive species assessment, her group puts together the assessments, brings them over to another group that looks at them, and then that takes another group and brings that to the secretary, and the secretary signs off. And the big change is that it's like a 2-day assessment, not a 2-month assessment per plant. And it's also all of the tier 2s kind of fall back into that needs to be assessed category. So basically the entire Plant Invaders of the Mid-Atlantic book is the list that Judy is working on.
Did I mean to laugh at that? That's very excellent. I like to hear that.
That's the goal. It's all of them. Now, there are some that were pre-assessed, meaning we knew what was coming and they're ready. And there's others like the tier 2s we weren't expecting because they didn't just fall into prohibited. So those have to go through. But that's Judy's big project now over the summer.
And being part of the I Bird, I Vote and watching you guys do your testimony was very excellent. So appreciate all the hard work you guys did on that.
It's a really great team. Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. Now I see Shelley's here. That's a name I recognize. Hello, Shelley. Yeah, maybe she does want to introduce herself. Anybody else? I know Nora because she's been to my house.
Sorry, hi, my mic was off and I couldn't figure out how to turn it on.
I'll let Shelley talk. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I introduced myself last time. Just chiming, listening in, that's all.
Well, my name's Nora. And I have met Sue, and I believe I've met Marlene, I am very new to native plants. I kind of stumbled into all of this by accident last summer when I was at a nursery looking for milkweed, and the nursery that I went to was closed, and I happened to find, I Googled from where I was and realized that I was 5 minutes away from some place called Bonatera. um, so I went over there and absolutely was just kind of blown away. And I volunteered for 3 or 4 weekends there. And I think I met Marlene at one of them. And I think it was you that told me about the Southern Maryland native plant group that I that I got into on Facebook. And I met Sue, and she let me come look at her garden. And I have just been super busy since I started meeting all you people. um, I I tried to sign up for the Calvert County Master Gardener program, and I missed the deadline, so I snuck into the St. Mary's and just finished. Actually, I just went to the first meeting last night. And it's just all been like a rush of information, and I'm busy growing things and finding things here that in my own space that I never noticed before. And my giant patch of wild raspberries that I've been picking and loving for years, I think I just figured out last week might be wineberries. So I'm all
Oh,
but I've chopped out all of the Nandine and the burning bushes, and and I'm busy, but I really love this group. So thanks.
good.
I want to shout out to Master Naturalists. I'm a Master Naturalist 2016 from ACLT. I think being a Master Naturalist gives you a better overview of native plants and native habitats and wildlife and how it all goes together. Master Gardeners is a fantastic program, and it does great, but they do tend to spend a lot of time on horticultural aspects of things. If you know what
I agree with you, Lisa, but I was a master gardener first and then became a master naturalist. And I think the horticultural aspects of master gardener are very applicable to native plants. A lot of my gardening know-how comes from my master gardener training.
Yes,
And then I was able to apply it.
More towards ornament. A lot of times they're more towards ornamental plants.
Yes.
And that's what I meant. Not the horticultural techniques are fantastic, but when they say to me, "Oh, I don't understand why I should not plant a whole field of zinnias and rose bushes," I go, oh, "All right." So I don't.
And you know what? I now I have like a new rabbit hole because I've never heard of a master naturalist.
Oh.
so that's kind of exciting. And to tell the truth, I almost decided not to take the Master Gardener test just because they really, really emphasize that you have to give non-biased perspectives on things, and I don't want to talk to people about their, how to make their lawn greener or what to spray on the bugs when they don't like them, and they're just things that I'm like, okay, I am biased. This whole past year has made me very biased. I'm not going to be able to do this very well. But
that's
just
exactly why I think I'm probably more a naturalist and then versus a master gardener. Yes, I understand that. There is Baywise. Baywise is an offshoot of Master Gardeners, and they're a really great group to get to know.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of realized is that I can pick my own volunteer hours, so I don't have to go to a regular plant clinic or, peach tree seminars. I can volunteer in the areas of my interest, and then I won't have to be in those predicaments where I feel like I'm supposed to give out advice that I don't want to give out.
exactly. I
I
know
just-
we have, we're past time. If anybody wants to leave, thank you for joining us. I'll stick around. We'll keep it open for a few more minutes and then, um, I'm sure everybody has things to do. We have watershed stewards in our group. We have master gardeners. We have master naturalists. We have Xerces ambassadors. We have Audubon people. We have just about everything because the whole thing is connected. You know, you can't be a bird person unless you want insects in your yard because that's what the birds are going to eat. I've been sitting here watching the chickadees going into a non-native Chinese holly, but they're nesting in there. And so I'm able to watch right from my dining room window, that they're going in there and feeding I don't know whether they've hatched because I've been very good and I haven't gone in and looked. But it's all interconnected in some way, shape, or form. So you'll find as you get more into this a whole idea of native plants that you'll find all sorts of people from all sorts of backgrounds doing all sorts of things, but it all fits together. Anybody else want to sum something up?
I have sort of a question for like our Lisa, our self-designated bird person, perhaps. I don't know if you want to be characterized that way or not, but I've been chasing down a weird topic. People think about bloom time where you want to shoot for like March-ish through November, so your garden is blooming, and so there's always forage for pollinators. And for birds, a lot of the thing that they need over winter is almost something I've been in my head calling like berry time. Like that there are different berries, not only that emerge in the fall or something like that, but actually are preferred over others at different times. And if Lisa or you or anybody else on the call is aware of any resources to say like this is
Yeah,
when pokeweed is preferred.
I have
This
a
is
whole
when
program called Berries for Birds that I do garden
okay.
series and for different for different garden groups that has that whole list. I can get the list for you if you want me just to email it to you, or I can sometime in the future do a garden chat.
Cool. Does that have like the time of the year they prefer those berries as well?
And which ones have the highest fat and which ones they like the most,
Cool.
and that kind of information. And how you could have berries throughout the season for them, and how you could protect berries that you don't want them to eat. Because there are berries that you would like your strawberries, you would like not to give those to the birds.
Yeah, I love any resources. I just threw my email in the chat. Thank you, Lisa.
Okay.
Yeah. I recently found out, well, during the pandemic, I became a birder because there's not much else you can do. And I found out, I thought, why aren't the birds eating my holly berries? And I had 2 or 3 native hollies on the property. And they're not eating the berries. Couldn't figure it out. And then it was February or March. I had a huge flock of cedar waxwings come in. I mean, there must have been 40 or 50 birds in that holly tree. Took all the berries, like within a day or two, and then promptly sat in my big oak tree and pooped all over my white car, which turned purple. But what I found out was holly berries aren't really palatable to birds until they've been frozen 2 or 3 times. And they soften up and they actually have some alcohol in them. They ferment. And that's when the birds will eat them. So, Lisa, if you send that to me, you've got my email address. I'd love to see the bird berries for birds stuff. And then I'll publish it too. I'll put it like on Facebook or links or whatever.
You did a very good reason why different berries are eaten at different times. Like persimmons, they don't eat the persimmons until they're the first frost when they're sweet. And they eat the bayberries at the beginning of the season because they need a lot of fat during migration. And they wait till other things get fermented because it's much more fun to eat it.
Yeah.
I think Lisa's offering to do a garden chat, Sue. I think we should take her up on that.
My
I'll
two fall
get to you, Lisa.
my two fall programs that I do are berries for birds and gardening for goldfinches.
Oh, cool.
I think berries for birds. And Sue, I have an answer to your question about the berries on your fringe tree.
Yes,
Did you make some comment that you bought the tree, you bought a single tree, and
yes,
now you're assuming it's a female because you had berries, a few berries?
correct.
I believe you have a male because I found a post from the Home and Garden Information Center that says although it's dioecious, the male tree flowers can also produce the male tree can also produce perfect flowers that have both male and female parts.
Oh, cool. So
And
maybe
once the perfect flowers are fertilized, they mature to create clusters of olive-like fruits. So I believe you have a male that produced perfect flowers.
oh, well, I'll start calling it he instead of she.
Imagine that. So
Well,
yeah, that's on the Home and Garden Information Center. I thought I had read something recently. I didn't want to say anything unless I found the source, but
Because
Okay.
that's on the home.
our really large fringe tree has never gotten berries on it. It just gets flowers, but I've never seen berries on it. So maybe the birds.
I guess they haven't produced the perfect flowers yet.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was on the Home and Garden Information Center's Facebook page. I don't know if you follow them or not, but
Oh, that's a good.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
think I would trust that resource if they've put that out there.
Yeah, that's from the Maryland Extension.
Yep. I'll tag you on that post, Sue, so you can see it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, good night, everyone. We'll end it here. Come and see us in July. Come to see us on Facebook. Come to the native plant thing on Saturday. Come to the plant swap. If anybody has any questions, you can email us, contact us at any of those spots.
Thank you, Sue and Marlene for putting this on, and Bill. And Sue, I'll see you on Saturday.
Oh, yeah.
Share. People bring
Rain or
really
shine.
good stuff. People bring really good stuff to that plant share. So if you're available and want to make the CLT, which I've never been to, so I'm excited about that.
I had to have my handyman move a second picnic table to the potting area. I have so many plants to bring to the plant swap.
Oh boy. Wow, that's going to be exciting. Anyway,
Yeah.
come to the plant share.
Also, Nan, if you have any more of those big giant lanceolata, Rudbeckia lanceolatas, we would like to have them.
Oh, perfect. You're there tomorrow? I'll bring them down.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.